Okay, so a while ago I was asked if I would do a stripped down video of my Dell Latitude CPx J650GT. Now I am going to try and do one today. However, the way I'm framing the camera and everything looks a bit different to me. So I'm not sure fully if I'm going to be able to do it properly. But we'll make a start. So the first things you need to do is do a correct strip down. Make sure you remove any of your expansions. Mine are empty. You can't see it, I'm trying to use natural light. I can't see nothing myself. So don't mind me if I stop and keep checking. You can see scuffs and scrapes. It's because it used to sit downstairs in one of my other houses and my grandmother used it and it got a bit harsh. So a precursory look. Now, as to say on mine, the keyboard is a replacement, the screen was a replacement, the touchpad and track point, but the track point itself is a replacement. The track point buttons were mine, however this one's broke. So I'll take that out for now and keep it out of the way. So first things, close your lid, turn it upside down. We'll do RAM removal first, nice and simple. You got a cover in the middle, there's a little latch, a flathead or crosshead, in and push out. Now this model has 512 meg of RAM in it. PC 100 SD RAM. There I am. You can get it fairly cheap, although it is becoming expensive now since people consider it old. We'll just do that for the sake of removing that completeness. Next, hard drive. So we'll turn it back over. Your hard drive is on this, here. On the left hand side, just above the speaker, you've got a single screw and a pull out. And I can't see nothing, but trust me, it's there. So, cross-headed screw again, unscrew, push down, slide out. And my hard drive, again, this is a second hand one. I got off eBay ages ago now on the cheap. Normal hard drive rattle. And a tractor going by the house. Right, the next step, orientate the laptop so that the catch is facing away from you and the rear ports are towards you. You've got several points. Now this is why I like this board. When I'm not doing a video of this, I could strip this down in 10 minutes flat, if that. You have 2, 4, 5 screws on the front with P. Those are your plastics. Now the reason why you only have 5 is because the back is held on by another screw, and we'll get to that in a second. You've also got 7 keyboard screws. Now a common thing I find with mine is if you tie the screws too tight, the keyboard stops working, which can be very annoying. In fact, my keyboard repeatedly stops working ever since I started to let my grandmother use it when I used to have it in the other house. And that's purely probably because I've damaged something because I put these screws on way too tight. So they only need to be tight enough so that you can feel, well, the basic tightness. You'll feel a slight nip small quarter turnover, and there we go. Now my screwdriver's lost its magnetism, and I really should have got my magnet out before I started this. Always magnetise your screwdrivers, although some say don't do it, it can do this, that and the other. It's handy as hell when putting them back in. If not, buy something like this. Mine was bought from Yorkshire Trading or Boyce's. If you're in England, you'll know them, especially if you're up north. It's a very good magnet. 2, 4, 6. Make sure you keep your screws. Everything is going to the side of me, where my cats will probably jump up and knock it all out. Next step. With the screws out, re-flip the laptop over, open the lid, let it fall backwards, preferably north, turn it upside down so that it falls loosely out, very loosely out. Again, apologies for the framing, nothing I can do about that. Now, be very careful, don't just whap this out. Once it's come out very loosely, you only need to hold it in about the position I'm here, because what you need to do next is go to the right with the left turning motion till it lies flat. Once it's lain flat, you can remove very carefully the ribbon connector, which can be just pulled out. Sometimes it's a bit stiff. And the point connector for the track point. And then it slides all over the place and falls out. So mine is a replacement keyboard. So for some reason someone's put stickers on it, so it's probably got foreign characters underneath it. And that can be out the way. Right, we'll look at the gubbins whilst we're here. So you have hard drive caddy. I'm trying to use natural light to emphasise better here. The PCMCIA express slots. I shall remove my blanking card. Monitor cable, fairly rigid and sturdy. We'll be pulling that out next. Your plastics. This, if I remember correctly, comes off as one. Then this is what's held on with the screws. Now you may be saying, what's this blank part here? Well, on mine there is a blanking plate. That is where the 56K dial-up modem was. Mine doesn't have it. CPU GPU unit. We'll be undoing this. You've got this heatsink with the fan behind it. Your 2 expansion ports are here. Since we're here, we will unplug the monitor cable. Firm grip on the ZIF cable, nice up motion. This board here is the power board, or the power regulator, or something like that, if I remember right. What we'll also do whilst we're here, this is another ZIF cable which connects the actual touchpad mouse. So we'll unplug that. Now we'll flip her back around, because we're done. Next step. Right, you have 3 very blurry screws. You have 3 screws. One here, just above the serial port. One here, in the plastic, there we go, needs a bit of shadow. And then another just above the graphics port. Now on mine, it didn't have a screw on the left one at the time, which is why it's got that other end, but that's also sliding out. So, I don't know what that's all about. Next step then, remove 3 screws. Preferably make sure it's still clipped shut, if it will, so you don't push it open. Ah, my screws. Yeah, mine's worked its way loose. Again, magnetised screwdriver helps. If yours has lost its magnetism. Don't be too worried thinking, oh my god, there's thousands of screws, I'll not do it. I've said before, I like this laptop. It's very simple, very easy to do. Now with those 3 screws removed, if I'm remembering right, we shall turn it round, open it up, and then the whole unit just pulls off. Slight rigidity on the plastics clips, nice slight gentle rocking motion, and that is your screen off. The screens on these are generally rock solid. They don't tend to die off. One thing to watch for is when you're pulling, don't pull too hard. Again, apologies for the framing. Don't pull too hard, you'll end up cracking your frame. Now that doesn't look like a crack actually on close inspection. That's someone's grazed that on mine. So we'll move the screen out the way. Next step, you guessed it, we'll remove the front plastic, palm rest and touchpad unit. The fan on this is pretty good as well for its size. On Windows 98, whapping out full power, the fan barely makes a tick. Windows XP can be a little bit more noisy with the fan, it'll kick in more often, but generally quite quiet. So we will remove the plastic screws. Again, there is 5 of them, and yep, she's going to play ball. Enough magnetism to get these ones out. Now you can't get the screws mixed up for the plastics and the keyboard because they are very, very different in size. On the left is the keyboard screw, on the right is the plastics screw. So don't be too worried if you do end up mixing up a couple of screws. They are generally all different sizes. The display screws, for example, are actually fairly minuscule compared to the others. That's your 3 from the back for the display, so for the main plastics you can't go wrong really. Again, very nice to work on. Nice and roomy. No fiddly bits to pull and poke or prod at or have to split off because they've had thermal padding glued to it. Nothing nasty like that at all. Very much like working on a very nice old car. So, the plastics and my screwdriver are now going over the place. Plastics are loose. Now mine is pretty worn, as you've just seen the sides come up. Just play with it gently and you should just be able to pull loosely it off the clips, unless I've forgot one. Nope. So it's just a case of pulling it till she gives. There we go. Ah, yes, that's why. Although that's an old one, I forgot about that. There's a plastic clip on the hard drive connection here, and obviously I've just pulled mine that wee bit too hard and she's just snapped. Be mindful of that. Although that's never done. Well, whatever. Now I am not going to strip this out, the front part. However, if you need to replace the speakers, which are there and there respectively, you have to undo the 2 screws here. This will then come off. Now I don't think I've ever had to do it on mine. Go away, cat. Not whilst I'm doing this. You've got the CMOS battery is located here as well. It's a lithium ion strip. So with the two screws off, this, if I remember rightly, just peels up and out, which then exposes the touchpad, which I believe is another few flat screws which come undone, and the audio connection cable. Sorry if this is bad framing again. The audio connection cable for the speakers runs up onto there, which then joins into this multi-layered ZIF. Now if the cat will leave me alone, I can continue, but I don't think that's going to happen. So essentially this is what you're left with. Now there's not a lot left to do actually for the strip down, so we'll go and strip off one or two of the other parts first. We shall remove this power board here, which I think it's the power board, it's the regulator or something like that. I had to replace that and the processor board on mine, although the processor maybe not on. Can't remember. Thanks for sitting on the screen, cat. But yeah, this is actually fairly easy if I remember right. It is just single screw located here. Mine has got some white gunk on it, as well as this black heat pad. You undo this, make sure it's again in tight but not too tight, then it's a push, work it ever so slightly till it comes out. As can be seen, the connector's down here, so what the best method is to work this whilst pulling, kind of work it up and then pull it out, because it actually fits into two legs located here that are black. Not that you can fully see, but there we go. We shall next remove the processor heatsink processor chip. Now, I've always been intrigued with the other models. Essentially, what my J650GT is a faster processor version to the CPx J500, or even the 400, 450, 5 and 550. This is essentially the last version of the original run of CPXs, if I remember right. Because obviously Dell actually used this body design on later Latitude laptops, because my cousin had a Pentium 3 1.1 gig version or something, I can't remember. So I've always been wondered if on the 450 you could pop in the 650 processor chip, because as far as I remember they have the same front side bus, the same RAM chips, they have the same graphics card, they use the same North bridge. Pretty much they're in the exact same chassis. Everything I think is actually in the same way, although don't hold me to that. So what we will do is we will next remove the processor chip. Now this is where there are a few screws, not too many. You've got two screws, silver, on the actual metal grill, heat grill, which are holding in the copper plate, which runs off to the heatsink and fan, although the fan itself is a separate unit. You've then got you have 4 screws holding the heat shield down, 3 sunk in, and a single black one on this metal strip here. This metal strip, we'll start with there, will work left throughout. So, undo the black screw, then undo the first sunken screw in the left. Then this strip should sit on there. We'll undo the other 2, sorry. Mathematics fail me now. And we'll remove the screws if we can, which I don't think you can, it's been a while. So we'll just undo that one again. Now don't try and pull it now because nothing's going to happen. Really what you should do, although I've not done it, you don't have to. You undo the two little silver screws first, then undo these four. Now with undoing those two, the heat plate lifts up. With the heat plate lifted up, you're left with this. Your CPU and GPU. The CPU is under this chip, the GPU is under here. This itself is a whole logic board, and this pulls out, and I will do that in a second, but the next step is to take off the heatsink, which, if I remember right, with a little persuasion, just pulls up out of the way. There we go. It's actually on a rotating arm. That's right, because... Okay, yep, it's been a while since I've done this. Hold on, I've got to kick my cat out, she's being annoying. Gonna knock everything over, which I cannot be bothered to deal with right now. There are two screws with the arm lifted back over here, and we'll get to those two when the sun doesn't overshadow everything. Once we remove the processor board, now for the processor board, all it is it's pushed in flush. Be very careful because all the pins are on this left side. Now on mine there is a whitish mark. What you need to do is take a flat-headed screwdriver, not a big one, not a, you know, about that size. I'm very terrible. Whoop. There we go. About that big, and gently pry at the left edge, top and sides, if you can. Very gently, because you don't want to break it. Or do you just pull it over from there? You can go from the right side to get a bit of leverage. Don't worry if you get a bit of creaking. Just be very careful. Now mine's been sat in for a while, so no doubt it's sat in solid again. Because if you bend the chips, then you've had it. You may as well throw away the motherboard. This is what's going to take time. Now don't worry if you're pulling and poking on the metal plates, they're actually fairly firmly in. It's the chip underneath you've got to be very, very careful with. There we go. Slight bit of persuasion on the top left edge, using the metal from the case as a brace. Lifting it out in an even pattern, because if you bend any one of those pins, this chip is dead. It seems a bit silly for it all to be on the one side to me, but there you go. So, with that out of the way, the question can still be asked. If you've got the 400 and you see this video and think, well, that looks a piss easy enough, I'll see if I can get the processor chip. Let me know if you can upgrade it, because that's always something that's intrigued me. Now then, we will not lose the screws, but the items shall be put out of the way. The next step, the heatsink. Again, just two screws here on the side, and it should pop straight out. Now it's a bit awkward with it sat in there, but get your screwdriver in at the right angle, and it should, there we go, a little bit of persuasion come out, and the magnet will hold the screwdriver. Do it with the other screw. And with that, the heatsink is actually still attached to the fan. Yes, it is. Again, been a while, so don't blame me. Remember right, that should just pull out now. Right, well the next easiest step then is you should do that once you've undone the board, which is what we'll do next. Now the motherboard, if I remember right, has two screws. You have a screw nestled down here between the PCMCIA connection and the hard drive caddy. The other screw is directly above the modem port there. And that is it, I believe. We'll just check, make sure I'm not going to mess up my machine again. You don't have to undo any of the mounting bolts on your connectors because they're flush with the metal. They're not tied around the plastic like on some other laptops and modern laptops and things like that. So we'll undo the two system screws. Now, here's the fun part. You've got to lift the board up and pull slightly out on all the sides as you pull it up. Because if I remember, she's a bit fiddly, but it does slide up and out in a forwardish motion. Other than that, there we go. Pull it back a little, lift it up, and because I've got that unscrewed, that's fallen out. And that is the motherboard removed. Now, I'll have to hold it. Best to leave the a bit late now. Best leave these screws in, otherwise it's just going to flop about a bit. To remove it, the connection is just nestled here, which I will attempt to do so that I can really do this a bit easier, and then I'll just refit it. Oh yes, the screwdriver will push it straight out, and then it will just nicely work your way out with it. And there you have the fan unit. The heatsink in this, like I say, because it's such an oldish system, only at 650 megahertz when on full power, it's very good. Now this is a thermal pad. I should probably get rid of that, however it still works properly. This is the size of the fan. There is one more screw retaining it there. Then this unit will come off, and then you can feed in a new fan if yours ever goes. So we shall put the fan out of the way. And then you are left with the base plastics. Now don't worry too much about ambient dust on it. I mean, my room isn't the tidiest. But you can just drop another board in there after giving it a quick wipe off, and it'll be 100%. Now my plastic's actually broke here. Looking at it now, it's kind of a pisser. Other than that, that's fine. The motherboard, again, there's a few more little bits, though I'm not going to go into those details, but I'll explain. You have the proprietary port connector for the docking station, which is connected 2 screws here and a cable there. There is a cable there, but you're better off undoing that. That will slide out and you can just remove that. You've got the microphone connection here. Again, pull out, that will come out. On the underside, you have other multiple screws to the metals. Now I've never took them off, and I very much doubt you'll need to as such, but it tends to be a pretty simple one. You undo one screw there, one screw here, and then you undo the screw-in mounts, and that is about it. That will then slide off. You have one screw here, just next to the PC chip's logic board, which holds in the PCMCIA as well as this brace, but this will pull out if you remove this. And then that is the whole board stripped down. So I hope you found this helpful, and sorry, I'm completely wrong. There's the graphics card on the underside just next to the RAM. So that's just logic boards on the main chip. So anyway, hope you find this helpful. Any questions, please ask, and I'll try and answer. And now I've got to rebuild it. Now I'm not doing the screen. You may want me to do that. I tend to find that a bit fiddly. If you really want me to do the screen, then ask and I'll think about it, because since mine's in working order, I don't really want to do that. Other than that, as I said, rate, comment, enjoy.